Good evening or afternoon. Today is Monday, July 17th, and I'd like to welcome you to a meeting of the School Board of Trustees. This is a meeting of the school board in public for the purpose of conducting the school corporation's business and is not considered a public community meeting. There will be time for public participation as indicated on the agenda. If you would like to address the board, just please fill out a yellow card and get those to Mrs. Warren. We've got a couple of things. We have just normal addressing of the board and then also a public hearing this evening. So either one of those, make sure you fill out a yellow card and get those to Mrs. Warren. Welcome, everyone. It's nice to see so many faces with us this nice afternoon. We'll try to get you out of here as early as possible so you can enjoy your evening. And with that, we'll start. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That brings us to hearing of visitors. Do we have yellow cards not for the public hearing? Okay. Then that brings us to the consent agenda, which this evening includes minutes from 6/19/23, board workshop meeting minutes from 6/23/23, accounts payable claims, payroll claims distribution summary report, and human resource report.
Motion to approve as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Yoder, a second by Mrs. Towner. Any comments or questions? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. We're going to take a little pause. Ms. Loopy has an announcement she'd like to make.
Good afternoon. I'm excited to introduce you. This is Jenny Sears, our recommendation for assistant principal at Southside. She began her career in education in 2014 as a music teacher at Chamberlain Elementary. In 2021, she was named the assistant to the principal at Chamberlain Elementary. In June of 2022, she became the assistant to the principal at Waterford Elementary and has most recently served as the assistant to the principal at Parkside and Chamberlain Elementary Schools. In her role as assistant principal, she was responsible for monitoring student behavior, enforcing discipline policies, and her work included collaborating with teachers, staff, counselors, parents, to decrease office referrals and interruptions to the learning environment. We at Southside are very excited to have her. She stood out in our interview committee because of her passion for students and teachers, her experience, her curriculum and instruction knowledge, and she cares deeply. Her colleagues explained her, I had to put this in here, as caring deeply for students, families, and teachers, and she is an engaged and exciting leader. So we are excited to welcome her to Southside.
Congratulations, welcome.
Jenny, do you have anybody you want to introduce us to there?
Yes, this is my husband Sean. He actually coaches football here at Concord. And then this is my son Brian. He's 3.
Well, welcome and congratulations. And Southside, I know will welcome you with open arms. So welcome to Concord. That brings us to item 4.1. Mr. Funston, you have a strategic plan update.
Yep. So every quarter we come to you with an update along strategic planning. Tonight I'm going to go ahead and invite our pillar leads up front while I talk for a second, then I'll let them give you an update. A few things with our strategic planning, as we talked about, we have designed that with system improvements that we know will lead to better outcomes for students, including pacing guides, common assessments, and some curricular resources that we're putting in place, along with instructional coaching of our teachers, a lot of systems and things we're putting in place to maximize student learning. One of the things that we're doing to increase our sense of urgency around doing that is we're setting short-term goals and taking on some short-term challenges to address areas along the way that we think need immediate attention. And so that's what I've asked all four of these folks to do tonight is to report on their pillar and those short-term objectives. So.
Well, I'll be referring to this handout if any of you have this out today, and actually each of us will. Our goal for the student engagement and academic success pillar was, you've heard a lot about us talk about foundational reading and how important it is for our little ones to really get a core strong reading program. And so we focused on our kindergarten to first grade. This past year, we've implemented a new reading curriculum. We've altered our interventions to be able to support that. And so our goal was for those kindergartners to improve from 56% reading on grade level to 60%. And you can see that our growth actually surpassed that and moved to 63%. 63% is a great improvement. As always, we want it for 100%. Right? And so we'll continue to work towards that, but are happy and thankful for the work that's been done. I just want to just call a shout out to all of our teachers that have put together, have really worked through our new reading curriculum this year. And this is just a testament to that work as those students were improving.
So I'm here to report about the well-being pillar, and one of the facets of that is focusing on making sure our students are college and career ready. So this past school year, 90% of our students completed different career and college readiness activities. So you might be wondering, well, what was it, kindergarten or first grader? You know, when you think of it naturally, you think of junior high and high school students, but right in the elementary, they start with examining their career clusters, they do different interest inventories, just getting the realm of what does it mean to be in a work environment, working on grit, perseverance, self-advocacy, and then that continues to build. One of the things we also started this school year with our sixth grade students is learning about how the graduation pathways connect to those career interest surveys. So they have an understanding that here are the things I like to do, these are the hobbies that I like to do. And then when I start selecting classes in junior high and high school, it can reflect those hobbies and those interest areas. So that was something that was also passed in legislation. The state is actually requiring college and career readiness to be a focus in schools starting July 1st of 2024, but we've gotten a head start on that and we'll continue to make those experiences more robust for our students.
Good evening, board members. As you know, I lead the Thriving Staff pillar as part of our strategic plan. And one of our priority goals is to ensure that we not only recruit a skilled, diverse workforce, but ensure that we retain a skilled, diverse workforce. And so one of our challenges, we reinstituted our mentor program last year. And our mentor program is one of many different ways in which we support the growth and development of our teachers. And with that mentor program this year, we had a goal to retain greater than 90% of our high-performing teachers as measured by our local assessments. Whether that's the state assessments, our NWEA assessments we give, our assessment plan, DIBELS and other common assessments that we can look at to again measure or evaluate their levels of performance. I'm happy to report that we hired 23 new teachers during the 22-23 school year. Of those 23, 15 of them demonstrated high performance through their student learning results. We've retained all 15 of those teachers. All 15 of those teachers are coming back next year. Of those other 23, 8 of them have either resigned and moved on, have completed their assignment, and will not be working for us next year, or were asked to resign due to substandard performance. So it's difficult. It's difficult to find teachers right now, but we know how critical and important it is for us to have awesome teachers in front of our students And so, continue to be serious about that, but we also understand the responsibility we have as an administrative team to make sure that we're developing and bringing our teachers along in order to ensure that they're high performing and doing great things for our kids. Thank you.
Our fourth pillar of the strategic plan is community building. So our goals that we focused on this time around, the first one was just, again, working toward creating this consistent system for ensuring that when we do marketing pieces, they make it to the target audience. So we set a goal of having 99% of our mail hit the right mailbox when we send it out. And we had, of the 9,221 pieces of mail sent out, one got returned this round. So we're feeling pretty good about that. We reached our target audience. That was important to us. We also had a goal of getting families the information they need to sign up for kindergarten roundup before they walk through the door with us. We have some work on this to do, as you'll see. We didn't quite hit our goal, but we did have 136 kindergarten students enrolled when they walked in the door at kindergarten roundup, which has never happened before because we've always done that paper packet. So we're very pleased about that. And I took a tally today, and we're up to 312 kindergartners enrolled for next school year, which puts us ahead of the pace for where we typically are. We know a rush is coming this last week. We're really pleased with that number. Additionally, we sent out a survey. This was really to gather some baseline data, and we'll do some action, goal setting and action planning around this. But we collected survey results from parents and guardians on one survey, and then we sent out a separate community survey. We got a little over 1,000 responses combined. So I'm excited to share some of that data with you this evening, but again, just critical to helping us get started on our next action steps.
You guys have any questions for any of them? I don't want to let them off the hook here. Any questions?
When we talk about reading, boys read and girls, I mean, Jacob struggled. I don't know if that's a trend or if it's just Jacob.
Yeah, so it all depends on the child. And I can tell you the stories about my kids, that they did not grow at the same times. And it is typical that you have children learn differently. And so we have to just be providing the supports throughout their elementary and intermediate experiences to be able to support that.
Then as far as reading Concord versus some of the other counties, are we growing?
So we're going to talk about iLearn scores here in a little bit, and we have some work to do. We have some great things in place, but as I shared earlier, our goal is for all of our kids to be reading, and so until that goal is met, we're going to keep working at that.
I would, in terms of first grade reading, which is what he reported on, we use Dibbles. That's our choice as a district to monitor reading through Dibbles. That varies from district to district. Not all districts use Dibbles, so it's hard to give you that direct comparison.
And then for Dr. Kendall, at graduation this year, a couple students graduated high school with.
Their associate's degree.
Right.
And an overwhelming number had at least 30 plus credit hours of college credit in high school, so, yes.
And that's part of the career pathway?
Yes, just getting them leading up to where their interest areas are so that they can be prepared to do that once they get to high school. Because as soon as you step in the doors, you have to be ready to go.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate all the updates and we look forward to, Mr. Myers might as well stay up. I learned.
So we have iLearn scores were shared publicly last Wednesday, I believe, after the state board meeting, and so we're coming to you today to share some of those or share those results with you. As we look at this information, there's a couple things that we do to look at this. First, we look at the state average. How are we in comparison to the state average? And because we may grow, but are we growing at the rate of other students throughout the state? And so we want to take a look at that. We also want to look at the same groups of kids. So it's easy for us to to say, okay, how did we do in third grade last year and how did we do in third grade this year? But really what we want to see is how did our third graders do in fourth grade this year? How did our fourth graders do last year and compare that to fifth grade this year? So that we see how are those kids growing. And so, and then we look at this information to be able to discern where do we need to continue to work to improve our scores. So you can see here that as we look at our scores, we have 21-22 school year initially there, and then 22-23 school year. You can see the differences that we are from the state averages. And then you can also see how we've grown in comparison to the state or how we have gone down in accordance to the state. You can see that in fourth and sixth grade, we saw some nice improvement. And in fifth and eighth grade, we went down a little bit. I would like to share that in fifth and fourth grade, some specific highlights would be West Side showed growth both in math and language arts, which was great to see. And East Side was above the state average in both reading third grade and math in fourth grade. So we have some strong highlights there to be able to recognize and look at. As we continue, I talked about first grade reading and I talked about foundational reading, and you've heard that message from me over and over again. Of course, our efforts there haven't yet come to fruition here because those students we're still working on those foundational pieces. That doesn't discount what we're doing in third through eighth grade. Of course, we're working hard to support our kids there. So this is, there's our language arts. And as we look at our math, we see similar amounts. Let me go back actually to reading. I do want to point out, you notice the difference in our state average as we get older. So one of the groups that has particularly been hard to, has shown difficulty in improving is our EL learners. And as you know, we have, over the last 6 years, we've had about 100 additional EL learners every year for 6 years. This past year, we had 200 EL learners additional just this last year. And so when we see, that's not an excuse, it's just a reality that we need to provide better supports for our students that need them. And, but that is a strong percentage of our student body, about 30%, almost 30% of our student body. But you can see that the state average pretty much holds true, 40% in 2023, 40% all the way to 44%. However, our passing is from 26%, and you can see by the time they reach 8th grade, we are now at the state average. And so given time, we are supporting, that is showing support of our kids. Of course, again, I always say, we want to do more. We want to help more. And so, but I wanted to share that with you. In math, we have similar, where we have some grades are showing increases and some grades have some decreases in relationship to the state. You can see that the state average here declines from 3rd grade to 8th grade. So pretty significantly, right? And so there's a lot of work in terms of math instruction that just needs to occur in all schools in the state of Indiana. You might remember one decision that we've made that will impact our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders is adopting a new textbook this year. And so that will go into place this year. There'll be a lot different kind of support and for our students in that realm. K through 5 will go through that adoption process this year in math. And so in the 24-25 school year, we'll have something there. So as we look at, like I said, these are just reviews of what I've already said. I will say our teachers have done a fantastic job this summer. They've worked, lots of teachers have been in here this summer working on curriculum and redefining with this data in mind, what do we need to do differently for our kids? We have different trainings that are going on right now, both in language arts and our new math curriculum. We're anticipating growth in all of these areas as we move through this school year. Questions?
And I think
Oh, sure.
I had one piece, just, where we're really, if you take the overall district percentage passing right now, we have 7th, 8th graders who are performing pretty well. And then, we're replacing that I learned percentage with the new 3rd graders that take it, that come up. And that's where the decline is. We know that our 2nd, 3rd, 4th graders, COVID's not an excuse at all, but we have a lot of catch up to do with our 2nd, 3rd, and 4th graders. And a lot of our efforts, as you've heard us, in terms of early literacy, where our focus is around making sure that we maximize learning with our 3rd and 4th grade as much as we can. So if you notice a decline in the overall district average, it's attributed to 8th graders with a higher passing rate moving on to the high school, and 3rd graders coming in with a lower passing rate than the 8th graders have.
I mean, obviously, as you said, nobody this isn't super fabulous news that makes anybody feel good about them, about it. But it does create the sense of urgency that we've talked about, and it does show a lot of the work that has been put in. So I'm thankful. It's not great, but I'm thankful that we can at least see it so we can help push that needle a little bit further. So thank you for sharing.
Go ahead.
I do have a quick question for you. I was looking at the 5th grade reading in particular. I had a daughter who struggled with reading. It's never been her favorite thing. 5th grade was a terrible year for her. Have we had numbers like this in the past that we can see something where in 5th grade, like we notice a trend maybe that there's something different that is happening in the elementary school that when they move into the intermediate school that we've been able to track, or is this kind of going to be our starting point and we'll be able to kind of watch that barometer as we move forward?
Yeah. So 2 things there. One, there's a lot of research out there that says anytime the students transition from a school to another school, that impacts learning. And so how do we continue to think about how do we transition our students from 4th grade to 5th grade? The other piece is we have been able to bridge that gap. And so we have been able to do those things. I have every confidence that we can in the future. I'm so about your daughter's year and.
That's okay, she's doing good.
Okay.
It's just one of those like bad year things. So it's just,
No, but we need to account for those and we need to address any deficiencies that we have. And so that's the work that we've been doing this summer and looking at the reports and altering our curriculum to ensure that we're supporting those areas.
Yeah, and I would say that we can look at more historical data. We look at cohort groups because for that reason.
Yeah.
So we want to know how this group of students compared to the state average this year, how they compare to the state average the next year. And we should be, if we're not at the state average, we should be shrinking that gap. And if we're not, then we're looking at, okay, programmatically, do we have a curricular issue at that grade level? That's why we look at cohorts, and Kent he goes back as far as he can to the different groups of students. So,
what kind of assessment are we using outside of the iLearn and the math that's named? But what kind of assessments are we using? Because obviously, if we're going to make improvements, we need to have some way of assessing improvement. And I'm looking at these through the eyes of the quality control guy. I think if I was a quality guy at the iLearn company, I would have a problem with any test that has a 20% median. And I'm sure this is gonna be spun as Worley's running the test. That's, no. What I wanna know is, excuse me, what are we using as kind of a standardized assessment that gives us good data, not government approved data?
Yeah. So, thank you. So, we do use NWEA. NWEA is a nationally normed, assessment that we are able to look at to see, where are our students, performing? Are they on grade level? Are they below grade level? Are they above? And then it allows us to see if they're growing. So iLearn is, did you pass or not? Like these numbers are, did you pass or not? But we want to know more information than that. We want to know if you're well below grade level, are you growing at a greater rate than you have in the past? If you're high, if you're above grade level, are you growing at a greater rate than you have in the past? And so NWA allows us to do that. Additionally, some of the work that we've been doing this year is taking our unit tests and putting them in a digital format so that we can get quick data from how our students are doing. And that's like every 3 or 4 weeks, we're looking at that information, making decisions about what we need to reteach, what we need to change in terms of our instruction, and to be able to support kids at that moment and then also later down the road. And so I feel like those two pieces we look at, quite frankly, we look at all the time to be able to discern what we should be doing next. Thank you.
Brings us to 4.3. Mr. Molnar, you have some AP scores for us.
I do.
Dr. Molnar, sorry.
President White, Mr. Preston, members of the Board of Trustees, thank you for having me back to speak about our advanced high school scores. We always talk about promoting academic excellence, the pathway to college and career readiness for high school. And I think you guys are going to be pleased with our AP results this year. I'm really excited to share all the hard work that our students and our teachers did. Here's what we found. So, this is just kind of an overview of some of those numbers I gave you previously at a different board meeting about some of the tests we offer. That's not a comprehensive list, just to give you kind of an idea. If we can scroll up to the highlights. So if you're not familiar with AP is scored on a 5-point scale. If you get a 3, 4, or 5, it's called a qualifying score. And qualifying means it can and most often will be counted as college credit. The state of Indiana, that's a requirement for state schools. Most private schools are following suit with that as well. So what you want to do is get a 3, 4, or 5 qualifying score so you can get college credit. That's the carrot that kind of dangles out there for taking this amount of rigor. We all kind of understand that AP courses are incredibly challenging, and this is some of our best and brightest students doing some amazing work. But we saw one of the best years in AP growth we've seen in a long time. AP Art, if you don't know about our AP Art, we traditionally have an amazing passing percentage in our AP Art, whether it's 2D Art or our drawing class. I do put the global average up there. Global average is typically better than our state average. They haven't published the state averages yet for AP across the board, so we're actually using a tougher measure, the global average. And you can see that we had 89% of 2D art pass against the global average of 84, again being the global average. Drawing 100% pass, 85% was the global. Calculus, AB saw a half-point increase in their mean score, which is the highest mean score they've had in 5 years. So trending on the right direction. We're seeing a true bounce back from some of our high ability students from COVID. Chemistry had its best year ever, a mean score of 3.13. That means the average score was over the qualifying score. So that is definitely where we want to be, and met the global average of a 75% passing rate. First time computer science had 2 students pass. It seems like a small number. We only had 9 students take the test, but it really wasn't a true AP course. It was a first time test. we have a computer science class, and they said, if you want to, you can opt in. So we had 9 students opt in, and we had 2 students pass it. So we were really, really excited about that. Seems low, but under the circumstances, we know that number will build over time, but we're excited for those 2 students that did pass the test. English Lit and Comp, best year ever, mean score of a 3.65 with an 88% passing against the global average of 77%. Absolutely just knocked it out of the park. Physics saw its best year in 5 years. This is still a small number of kids, but we see it exponentially growing. But they did almost meet the global average, which we all know physics is one of the hardest tests out there. I'll save U.S. government for the end. Stats had best year in 5 years. Mean score passing rate. U.S. history saw the highest mean score since pre-pandemic. And then finally finishing out with AP government. The mean score of 3.26, highest mean score they've had in a long time, if ever, and a 71% passing rate versus the global average of 49%. Again, knocked it out of the park. Kudos to our students that take this level of rigor, that push themselves to do so well in this test. Kudos to our teachers, Mr. Kurtz, Mr. Wharton, Mr. Cook, Ms. Cepeda, Mrs. Reddick. I'm just going down the list, guys. Coach Schlegel, Mr. Rivero, Ms. Kreidler, and Mr. Kraus. Kudos to them and all their hard work. It's a tremendous amount of work to prepare for AP classes and to keep that level of rigor high. Last thing I will share is our average score is that chart at the bottom. What we see is since the AP, all of the tests are scored on a 5-point scale, we can get an average, right? So the average pre-pandemic was 2.5. What we see is the trend line, one of our best years ever, folks. Our average score was 2.8, which is almost averaging our full average. So again, kudos to all of our hard work, to our teachers, our students, the parents that supported them along the way. Really great effort on their part. So, any questions?
Are only seniors taking that, or do we have?
Absolutely not. We have sophomores, juniors, seniors. We will have some freshmen taking human geography this year as well.
I think that's a testament, at least to the students that, we're jumping into college level classes with sophomores, that takes guts.
Yes.
Not just because it's hard, but because you're gonna have to go home and actually do homework. And, as far as the teachers go, again, we're big on, college and career readiness. And whether these kids walk out of here and ever see another calculus class again, or if they're crazy enough to try a physics class again in college or whatever, we've got teachers who have obviously, as we have the results here, spent their time making the kids ready to have that option. So yeah, I see a lot of twos up there, but if anybody's ever taken those tests, I'll walk away with 2.
Thanks so much.
Appreciate it.
That brings us to item 4.4, Spear. Community building service.
I have some survey data to share with you today. First, the community building pillar in our number one goal. Remember the goal that we're after here. I want to talk to you briefly. So I mentioned in our earlier report, this is baseline data. So again, we're just gathering information about specific ways that we can improve. So a lot of the questions, and I do have the questions up here, so I'm going to want to look at those or the survey data and answer them this time. A lot of the questions were just improvement. How can we get better? What do you need from us? I threw a couple of communications, because that's my lens, but just some baseline data to kind of gather, and then we'll go through action. Distribution, we did this 2 separate ways. If you're a parent, you got an email from us, with a code in it, and that code went specifically to your child. So when you were taking this survey, it was taking your data specific to your child's experience at the school where they're at. And that's good for a lot of reasons, but mostly because it gives us some real-time data that we can share with principals, and we're looking forward to doing that next week. We also did a community survey just because some of the questions that we asked, especially those about our facility work, our communication out in the community. We want to get better at. We want to make sure we're trending in the right direction on that. And so we asked that question, but it wasn't quite as specific as what you would have experienced if you were a parent with us. We opened the survey May 16th, and we left it open until yesterday, just for good measure, to see what we might catch. Response count, so I shared a little bit before, so we have 1,034 responses from parents. We have about 5,200 kids. We would have liked that number to be a little higher. This is the first time we've done this though, so we feel pretty good about the parents we were able to reach. And we have 44 responses from the community. So we're gonna push that even harder when we do this survey again, hoping that we can continue to get more feedback from our community. We did a little note in our last newsletter, push it out on our social media pages, but certainly there's more we can do to make sure we're getting feedback from our community members. So here it shows you the breakdown of the total responses. For the first half of this, I'm just speaking specific to the parent survey. So I broke them out separately so you can see the spread across the buildings and by grade level. One quick thing to note there. We did this through Qualtrics, which is the company that we're using for surveys and our dashboards. And the gentleman who helps us with those projects, his name is Josh, it's amazing. But he shared with us, as I was feeling kind of down about the number of survey responses, that based on the distribution, the survey results that we got are considered statistically valid, and that we should feel good about that. So we have a pretty good spread, even though I would have liked to see more. I'm always going to set the bar a little bit higher. He said, this is really good data for you guys to hold. Okay, so today I'm sharing with you overall data. So you're seeing everything at a district level. We do have building specific data, again, because we asked the questions that way of our families and they logged in so that they're filling out on behalf of their students. But we're meeting with principals next week to share that data with them so that they can kind of do some action planning, goal setting for their own buildings. But we have the district data for you today. Top strengths was one of our questions. So you can see there, academics, performing arts, athletics. They were asked to select 3, the total of 3 votes, and this is how the spread looked. When you ask other, it can always be entertaining to read the responses. But, several of those were just the location of our district. Makes them feel really good. Our strength program, our EL programming, which, to be honest, shouldn't have included in our overall list anyway. Our school times, leadership opportunities, and just like a feeling of welcomeness for some of the things that come out of that. So
Those were in the other section.
those were other
Thanks.
things listed as other. Here we have the school questions. So after we asked the district level questions, we dug in and asked them, okay, specific to your school, how do you feel about these things? The one on the top just shows you kind of the overview of the the parents filling out whether they strongly agree, strongly disagree, and you can see the majority of those filling out somewhat or strongly agree with the statements. The average is out of a 5-point scale, which I said that on the last one. And then down below, you see some of the school-specific questions. So ranked highly is the comfort in talking to someone at the school when there's concerns. So we feel really good about that number. Obviously, that's very important to us. Our staff works extremely hard to make sure we're communicating with parents and that they feel good about what we offer. So that was great to see. The other was the use of technology is appropriate, and that was worded both in the devices themselves, the types of things that they're being used for, and the amount of time kids are spending on those devices. So we kind of asked a 3-part question there, and we're still glad to see that up at 4.4. The lowest on this is communication about academic progress and well-being. So that will be something we talk certainly to principals about, and we'll dig in at the building level to see kind of where is that happening, where's the breakdown occurring. But again, 4.1 out of 5-point scale. We feel really good. Okay, this next one, I apologize that it's tiny. This is a key driver analysis. So on the x-axis is how well parents rated each of those questions that we asked before. And the y-axis is how important it is to them. So when you look at this, we want to see lots of things up in the top right quadrant, and we do. And I also want to mention, it's so hard to see, but it's scaled to the median. So the median here is 85.5%. So even when we talk about, our lowest performing question on there, the thing that parents still think is important that we could do better on is 82%. 82% of people are reviewing that. So again, I just want to frame you and make sure we're still doing very, very well. There's always room for growth, but we've seen good results from our families. So most important to our families, a sense of pride and connectedness, providing excellent education, well-kept facilities, student safety, and then again, just that comfort level with talking to personnel. So those are things that they think are important and that we're doing pretty well on. Okay, and my fun communications questions. This is what we do. So we asked some questions about communication to gauge how well we're doing. We got a 4.5 out of 5. Excellent. With that. And then we asked, what platform do you prefer? What do you want to hear from us? Because we've switched from even 5 years ago doing a lot more, we were doing a lot more phone calls, now we're doing a lot more text messages, emails, so just making sure that what we think is the right direction is what our families say. And by and large they do. The website is one that we got some feedback on, just needing to do a better job of keeping that updated, so you see that one ranked just a little bit lower than the others. But emails and text messages, it sounds like it's a good way to connect with our families. And then the school specific, it's just my child's school, sending regular communication, and again, most saying strongly agree or somewhat agree with that statement. We did have an open-ended comments section, so I shared a few of these here so you can get kind of a feel for what our pillar team will be looking at, as well as what principals will be looking at. If your principal in the room, this is pretty good. Enjoy. You'll see excel at strong academics. We thought this one came up a few times, but anything being sent to students about school-related stuff should also be sent to parents. This makes sense. This makes sense. Communicating our volunteer needs more clearly. And then, just consistency. I think one of the things that came through is, and again, is that transition from one building to the next. We do it a little bit differently at each level, but just making sure that as we do that pass off from the 4th grade to the 5th grade, and then again 2 more times before they get to the high school, making sure that it's consistent enough that families can expect the way the communication will occur. It might look a little bit different, but they'll be able to. So, but that's the main way. Okay, and then just briefly, this last one is an overview of the community survey. Again, 44 responses, but I did want you to see kind of how the community was represented in that. We asked the Concord graduate question, in part because we wanted to get a feel for who was answering the survey, and also because we're trying to build up a list of some of our graduates for things like reunions. So we took all their emails down, what we shared with the school, to that come up with and communicate with them. Okay, I rushed through that fairly quickly, but happy to answer any questions.
Do you feel like next year's survey, what will you tweak, what will be added, what information did we not receive that we wanted to receive?
For sure. So we want to keep a lot of it the same so we can measure, but was something that came up a lot that we should have had a question about serving the needs of our EL population. And I think the same for our special education population would be a good question to ask and make more specific. The communication one went pretty well, so I don't think we would need to add questions beyond that.
Bless you.
And then as we talk to the principals, I think some of that will naturally come from them and their own action planning. They'll be including some of this, I'm sure, into their goal setting for the year. So when we hear back from them, I'm really trying hard to make sure that I'm texting and emailing, all of this information. We'll kind of tweak that question.
Thank you very much. That brings you to you, 4.5 Advocates Program.
Yes, thank you. This evening, I'm going to share with you a plan to, we first talked about this one. We mentioned it a few different ways. This came up in our strategic planning process. It's come up a few times with this group. I think we first started talking about it 4 years ago, but we're going to do this. So the community building pillar, one of our goals is to create opportunities for ongoing engagement. So we have this idea of creating this group that we like to call Advocates for Concord Education. And essentially what the program is an opportunity for, we're going to shoot for 15 to 20 people to come in to attend monthly sessions and to learn about different topics and ask questions and give us feedback. We'd like to, you can see some of the topics listed on the right-hand side, but we really want to deep dive with our strategic plan and make sure the word is getting out about that, and all the work that's going into that, as well as our district priorities. Of course, school finance, school safety, our facilities and our long-range planning, our student demographics, and we've talked about those here, but they just change so rapidly. Getting that information out in front of people is always good. Extracurricular, co-curricular activities we offer, our academics, as Kent shared tonight, that's with information, and then volunteer opportunities, because we saw that in the survey. And we really did take the survey kind of, the timing was perfect, because we were hearing from people, the desire to learn some of these other things, and the questions that they were answering, we were able to tailor this in those topics. So anyway, the idea is to have these 15 to 20 community members come in from September through December, so 4 sessions, 90 minutes apiece, so it's a commitment. But have them come in and kind of run them through both a little bit of sit and get informational side, but also have them have some experiences with us. Bring in students and let them meet them. I know when the students came with a robotics project, that was really fun at a board meeting, like that kind of experience. So they see what the kids are doing and learning in class, along with learning about Concord as a whole. So that's kind of where the idea came from. And then we would ask them to attend those sessions, come to at least a school board meeting, just so they have, know what this experience is like as well. And then along the way, just ask a lot of questions and share their input. So to get this started in September, we need to start advertising it pretty soon. We've kind of curated a list of our student demographics, so we'll do our best to match people from having this experience with our student demographics, as well as just making sure we have a good selection of people from our community. So business, nonprofits, grandparents, parents who live in our, or people who live in our community who aren't necessarily parents. Just making sure that we have a lot of different perspectives on that. And of course, we'll provide translation services.
So you get a list of 50, right?
Run over and over.
And so, yeah, so after December, then we'll just have another series, and those people will just shift onto that, right? That's what we're doing. We're gonna have 50, we're gonna have more.
I would be jumping up and down excited.
Right.
Yeah, we have plans to run a second session of this, starting in January.
Perfect. You're right, we've talked about this, I think even our first year on the board, like it's been, so I'm loving it, thank you so much. Thank you very much, sorry, squirrel. That brings me to item 4.6, Dr. Kendall.
So I'm here to quickly update you on another grant that we have been awarded from the IDOE, and this is the Computer Science Catalyst Grant. And the focus of this grant will be for our CIS STEM special and our high school computer science teachers. So essentially what 5-Star does, because that's who we'd be partnering with, would come in and help prepare the scope and sequence necessary in those classes, as well as make sure the content is aligned with the new computer science standards that will actually be assessed for our students in K through 8 starting this school year. So I just wanted to bring this to you as another opportunity for our students. Any questions?
We're good, thank you so much. That brings us to item 5.1, Ms. Nixon.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
All right, I would like to take this opportunity to review continuing our joint agreement with Elkhart County Special Education Cooperative, EXEC. EXEC provides us the opportunity to work with specialists like school psychologists, behavioral resource consultants, physical therapists, occupational therapists, They also provide behind the scenes support in terms of record keeping, state reporting, and also consultation. The support that we receive through EXEC, it helps us to provide that continuing service that our students need because their needs just continue to grow. And so we need that support. So I would like to ask the board's approval to continue our participation with EXEC for the 2024 school year.
Motion approved.
I have a motion by Mr. Maloney, a second by Mrs. Davis. Any comments or questions for Mrs. Davis? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Good, thank you, Mrs. Dixon. Dr. Kindle,
So
MOU for us.
yes, first, MOU is our MOU with Kids Care, and so they, provide before school and after school services for our students. Just to give you some numbers, before school is offered at Oxbow, and that's normally between 30 and 35 students. Then we have both Southside and Oxbow that offer, after school care, and that's about 95 students. And they actually offer summer programming that's not necessarily run through Concord, but it services a lot of Concord kids. And there's about 35 kids per week. So seeking your approval to continue this agreement with them.
Motion approved.
A second. A motion by Mr. Maloney, a second by Mrs. Towner. Any comments or questions for Dr. Kindle? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Dr. Kindle.
Right, and then the next MOU is with Bowen Center, and they provide mental health support for our students, primarily through science skills trainers. So for students that need additional support during the school day, they actually send representatives from their organization to work one-on-one with our students. And sometimes that happens through DCS referrals, Department of Child Services referrals, and sometimes it's just us seeking support for our students, one-on-one support for our students during the day. So looking for your approval on that MOU.
Approved as presented.
I have a motion by Mr. Yoder, a second by Mrs. Davis. Any comments or questions for Dr. Kindle? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Dr. Kindle. That brings you to you again with some reading of attendance procedure.
So back in May, when you approved the student handbooks, we shared that we would be bringing updated attendance procedures to you. And the reason for that is there used to be an Elkhart County attendance program, and that no longer exists. And then we also work one-on-one with probation with our chronic truancy program. So we wanted to meet, last week I actually met with a representative from probation as well as CAPS and the SOARS and different organizations to align those practices, because ultimately, here's the magic number, is our goal is for all of our students to attend school 94%. So that means that we're really gonna have to push, and so the procedures that you are reading today are hopefully to get us on track and getting students in school more, because obviously you need to be in school to do well in school, so. There are gonna be different thresholds that we will work with families at, 3 absences, 6 absences, 8, et cetera. And that will include emails, text messages, postcard notifications, home visits. We also have a new attendance officer, Sam Adams, who's one of our bus drivers. Looking forward to that. So we'll have many informal and formal attendance hearings where we'll just be pushing to get our kids in school. So if you have any questions, I will come back next time with the second reading.
I mean, yeah, I agree, it's important to kill truancy. I'm looking at this in light of, we had really bad last year, and we had like fevers that wouldn't go away, so she was going like 10 times. So do we have any kind of safeguard? Because obviously we never want a program that's just an automatic.
Right.
So do we have like a safeguard for those kinds of situations?
We do have it written in where documented medical issues that arise with the students that would keep them out of these notifications. So we do have those safeguards in there.
It says serious medical conditions that, like,
Right.
anything the doctors do.
Right. I would say serious enough so that the doctor feels that the student can't be in school. And just to give you guys a data starting point, last year, 51% of our students missed 10 or more days of school. So we have, our work cut out for us, but as we all know, we just want the children in school to learn, so we'll figure it out. Any questions?
Have we ever had Department of Child Services involved in attendance before?
Absolutely, yes.
So,
Yes.
they.
And it's,
That's not new.
No, it's not, nothing else.
Thank you, Dr. Kendall. Gosh, you're just studentized. 7.1, digitized handbook.
So we shared with you again in May when we had you vote on the handbook. I'm just bringing this up on the screen. And so we want to preview this illustrious digitized handbook that will no longer be printed, but in fact will be available for our stakeholders online. So we wanted you guys to be the first to see this. So essentially all the content that is in the handbook is linked in here. So all you have to do, for example, you jump to strategic plan and then it gives you all of those, all of that information. We have links built in here. And then, so all of the stuff at the top is the district content. And then there's some content that's building specific. So for example, if I click on the high school, you know, it shares who their administration is, and then it gets to building specific information. So we feel like this will be a great user-friendly program for our parents. And this was just a preview. Ta-da!
And that is on our website.
It will be as soon as this meeting's over.
Yeah, but that's where everybody will find that. And is that also on the app that you can get through the app? Can we get through this?
I
know.
believe so, but I will confirm.
Good. Thank you very much. Mr. Funston, you have an introduction.
Yeah, so I'm going to introduce an opportunity to take part in some litigation if the board so chooses. I'd like to give a little background information about that, and then we did move it as a report, so I would encourage if people in the community would like to provide input on this, feel free to reach out to myself, and I can relay that to the board as well. But, you know, I think you probably would have to been living under a rock lately to not know that some things have came out in the recent past about how social media companies drive traffic to our kids. It creates mental health issues. There's a good document. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to grab that or not, but you know, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, and Google have been presented with the evidence that some things that are presented to students have detrimental impacts on their well-being. You know, I don't know if you guys have kids and you've seen their use of social media, and those of you with little ones, it's coming. But as soon as we give our kids a phone, you know, as much as we can, and my wife and I have tried hard to monitor that and limit that. It's a difficult thing, and the social media companies don't make it easy. So Indiana is actually 49th in the nation in mental health supports to our students. And it takes away, our counselors are constantly bombarded with, I won't say bombarded, but having to intervene because of things, how our kids feel about themselves as a result of the things that happen on social media and their inappropriate interactions with each other at times. So we were, I was asked to join a webinar from this law firm here mentioned in the handout. And I mean, they made the case even stronger. You know, this board, I can have the opportunity to speak to them directly if you'd like. But this is the same law firm that represented, I think, over 1,000 school districts in the vape litigation. So Altria, and manufacturers of the vapes. There's a lot of things that comes with that when you're targeting things to students. A lot of supports that have to be placed in school. A lot of police support that takes place that involves that. And so I'm happy to announce, I think, I've presented this, but that both of those lawsuits have settled. And Concord will be the recipient of a settlement from both of those two companies. And so we're excited about that. We're excited that it's been acknowledged that practices are changing because of that. And this same group feels even more strongly about social media. The districts involved, there are a lot of districts involved in Indiana, would be Indianapolis Public Schools, Fort Wayne Community Schools, Elkhart Community Schools, Greater Clark County Schools, Lawrenceburg School Corporation, and Pioneer. And so I would imagine, similar to the vape litigation, that some others will be coming on here in the future. But you've heard me rant and rave about the impact of social media on our students. I hope it's something that we can support and we can show our support through participation in this. I'll say that the agreement, we pay no attorney fees upfront. The only way that attorney fees get paid would be if we are awarded a settlement. And at that point, I've had Warwick and Boyne have reviewed the paperwork and feel good that that's fair and typical what attorneys would typically charge their clients in similar situations. So now it's time for questions. Again, I won't bring it for a vote until we've got to vet it enough, but wanted to introduce it to you and really to our community here tonight. So.
Do they have a deadline?
So, they're involved in the litigation now. And so when you ask about deadline, it's you can come on and support this until this happens. And we know how the legal system works in terms of that. And so I'll say that I would think that we would want to sign on by the fall, at some point in the fall. If not sooner. Fall.
Yeah, I think there's no question on malfeasance here. I guess, like for me, I'd really like to hear what parents have to say about all this. Because they're obviously jumping into litigation. It's their kids, it's our kids too, but when we jump into litigation, obviously we're going to be the ones receiving some kind of monetary value. So I think the parents ought to have some time to jump in. Sure.
Very good. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. All right, that brings us to, and you're gonna have to kind of bear with me because we've got a few moving parts with this. But the next item on our agenda is a hearing for the bond on the matter of additional appropriation in the amount of $3.5 million plus investment earnings, which are proposed to be made on account of the general obligation bond project. If you are interested in speaking during this hearing, I've got a couple things I'm gonna, say publicly. We're gonna go over scope again. So if you've not filled out a yellow card and would now like to, this would be the time for you to do so. I just kind of have a little bit of a public announcement, and then I'm going to toss it over to Dan to remind everybody what the scope of this project is. Public community minutes are 30 minutes. When I call your name, you have 3 minutes to speak. Mrs. Warren is our timekeeper. There's a little screen over here that you can see the time posted. Once you approach the podium, we ask you to state your name and that you are a stakeholder in community schools. We ask you to end your comments at 3 minutes. Please keep in mind that this is a time for you to share comments and concerns. This is not a question and answer session. We do not allow making personal references or attacks to individual educators or students. We also ask that you only address the board as a whole. We do not tolerate aggressive, harassing, or profane comments. If someone has already stated your concern, please be mindful of being too repetitive. If I have to interrupt you to remind you of any of these items, that will be taken from your time. Thank you for your cooperation. And Mr. Funston, will you go over the scope of the fund again?
I will. So last meeting in June, I went over the scope of the 3 priority projects that we hope to accomplish as part of our general obligation bond. Just a notice or reminder to folks, the general obligation bond is really something that districts use often to overcome circuit breaker loss. Prior to tax caps put in place, districts would receive funding through capital projects to attend to things similar to what we're talking about tonight. When that happened, that no longer took place, and districts not impacted by the circuit breaker are able to do a lot of these things without general obligation bonds. One of our strategies is, again, the district has lowered our debt service rate pretty considerably, and actually came up as a concern in the community building survey that people were concerned that we're not going to be able to provide for kids by doing that. But we've lowered our debt service rate 78.5 cents. Our overall tax rate is the lowest that anybody here can remember. And so I would just want to remind everybody that these are projects that are done within that tax structure and to deal with. So the 3 priority projects, the first one, just a reminder, is the Oxbow parking lot. I think we have some Oxbow folks here maybe. The Oxbow parking lot, and we don't know for sure. Jeff Phillips will work with architects and contractors to do borings of that to see what all needs to be done to that parking lot. But we will address the traffic flow. One of our goals in both the Oxbow and Eastside parking lot is to get as much traffic off of the main roads as possible, so we're not backing things up. And so we put in a couple of temporary solutions to both of those. Put a little drive out at Eastside along the edge there to try to get as much traffic, but we would like to make some permanent changes out there. Jeff's constantly fighting that temporary parking lot. But at Oxbow, we would include improve the traffic flow. There's some ADA needs in the Oxbow parking lot that we would deal with. The drainage, if you've ever noticed, in the Oxbow parking lot isn't good. It causes a lot of our problems with the thawing and freezing. And then we would like to upgrade the lighting in the Oxbow parking lot as well. The other thing we would like to do would be at Eastside. Again, at Eastside, we'd like to improve the traffic flow of their parking lot, address some ADA concerns that we have at the Oxbow drainage, and then again, we'll want to do some lighting there. So very similar projects between Eastside and Oxbow. And then I know we have some softball folks here tonight, so thank you for that. I think we have maybe some players and some coaches here tonight supporting this, but we've had an ongoing issue with our softball field in terms of drainage. You can see from aerial photographs, anybody can go to Google Maps, look at our softball field, and you can see the sand washing out to the creek. So we engaged our architect and worked with some civil folks to try to determine why is this happening, what can we do, and they think a lot of that water is coming off of Minuteman Way and working its way through the field down to the creek. And so our proposal, priority project here, is that we would address the drainage at the softball field. While we're doing so, we would like to replace the fencing to the black vinyl fencing that's similar to our other facilities. We would replace the scoreboards while we're doing work on the softball field. The middle section between the 2 softball fields, we would make improvements to those as well. And I think that at the end, we would have softball fields and softball area that our kids and our parents and everything would meet their needs and would be happy with. Like I said, until the board, until you would pass this resolution tonight, if you do, we, at that point, will officially engage an architect, engage a construction manager, and we'll begin pricing these things out, going to bid. But there's potential that those three things come in less than 3.5 million, we don't know. And if they do, some things we would look at would be the Oxbow playground paving around that area. We would upgrade that. One of the other uses of general obligation bonds are the purchase of buses. We have always, the district has used, as long as I can remember, either referendum dollars or general obligation dollars to buy buses here. And as you know, the state has us on a 12-year replacement cycle with buses. And so if there's extra funds there, we would like to use that money for bus replacement. And then one of the big things at Oxbow would be, Jeff would love if we had the ability to address the boiler at Oxbow. And I don't think we're really thinking that we'll have enough to do that, but if we do, Jeff will be yeah, so that's a review of this scope.
Thank you very much. Have you, since the last hearing, have you heard from?
I had one meeting with a community member prior to the last board meeting, but have received no objections or questions from other community members.
And when you say within the scope of our current debt structure, that's saying that we're not raising taxes.
That's maintaining the debt rate that is the same debt rate we have right now, 78.5%.
Thank you very much. I noticed we did not get any more yellow cards, so we will now open the public hearing. As I mentioned earlier, when addressing the board, we just ask you that you state your name and address and limit your comments to the proposed appropriation and that they be 3 minutes long. I have one yellow card, and this person is actually going to get 2 3-minute sessions because when I asked for public comment earlier, they didn't see that there was 2 items listed on here. So first, Stacey McDowell will go with your iLearn. 3 minutes if you still want to talk about iLearn.
We're kind of all together, so I won't be more than 3 minutes.
Okay, then come on up.
My name is Stacey McDowell, and I am a mother of 3 children in Concord Community School Corporation. And I'm here to address the board regarding the general obligation bond and the iLearn results. So I recognize that facilities need to be maintained and that takes capital dollars sometimes. I'm sure there's been detailed evaluations and needs assessments completed to plan the projects that take priority over others so that the funds are invested in the most cost-effective manner. What troubles me is that while we are investing in infrastructure improvements, both in time and funds, our academic scores seemingly go ignored. Although today I was grateful to hear the review. I looked at the results in a different view from a corporate level, and roughly 70% of the students are not meeting proficiency standards. The 2023 iLearn results posted on the website are as follows: English and language arts, 32%, math, 31%, science, 20.1%, and social studies, 27.6%. When you rank the schools in order from highest performing to lowest performing, we are performing in the bottom third of the state. I don't know about you, but that's not acceptable to me to send my children to school who are performing in the bottom third of the state. I haven't heard or seen any direct plans to address the proficiency scores at any of the school board meetings I have attended. Today is the first time I've seen anything related to this on the agenda. I have read through the strategic plan and do not see any lead or lag measure to determine if we are moving the needle in the right direction.
The school board is a governing body that provides accountability to the school corporation. Accountability doesn't stop at project and funding, but also extends into academic achievements. The whole reason we send our kids to school is to learn reading, writing, and math. And based on our current metrics, we aren't doing a very good job. So in closing, my ask is this: can we put academic excellence as a priority and monitor it in a measurable way that is transparent to the public?
There's, again, no other yellow cards. Is anyone in the public want to speak on the bond issue? Hearing none, I now close the hearing. And Mr. Hesser, it's now your turn, please, sir, to go over our appropriations.
You have two resolutions to consider tonight. The first one is the additional appropriation. And after having just had a hearing, basically what this does is because the bonds coming in, and more funds coming in that have not yet been appropriated, and the additional appropriation resolution authorizes you to spend those funds. Unlike the appropriation of tax dollars, this additional appropriation of bond proceeds is required to be approved by the DGR or Department of Local Government Finance. If anyone is concerned about that. Any questions about the additional appropriations resolution?
For motion.
Motion to approve as presented.
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Yoder, a motion by Mr. Yoder, a second by Mrs. Towner. Any comments or questions on top of what Mr. Hesser has said? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Mr. Hesser, now will you go over the second resolution, please?
At the previous meeting, you approved a project resolution outlining the general terms and focus and scope of the project. The final bond resolution will establish the maximum amount to be borrowed, the maximum term of repayment, and maximum interest rate. It also contains details about the bonds, such as what form they should take. This resolution also approves the forms of the eighth supplement to the master continuing disclosure undertaking, and as well as the registrar and paying agent agreement. The SEC requires that a school corporation enter into a master continuing resolution or undertaking before it issues any bonds. And you've done that several times before. That's why this is the eighth supplement that we've had over the years. The school corporation did that previously, and it basically requires that the school corporation agree to provide annual reports and certain types of financial information to the SEC and provide notice of certain material things on a timely basis. It's basically promising to do the things that you do, or that you promise to do in other documents.
Motion to approve. Second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Davis, a second by Mrs. Towner. Any comments or questions for Mr. Hesser? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much, Mr. Hesser. Mr. Funston, you have an agreement for us to consider.
Yeah, so CISA is the organization that is working with us on our metrics that we talked about. I would just point out to everybody, actually, I'm going to take a look at the screen a second. CC ATV2.
No. ATV1.
One of the things that we've done recently is ATV1?
Yeah.
So I'm presenting in somebody's office right now. Our to Mrs. McDowell's point, our lagging measures are the measures pointed out in the Indiana Graduates Prepare to Succeed. So we put a banner on our website here. Anybody can go there and look at, those are the things that the state thinks are important. And I think we're in line with that. As we look at our strategic plan, when we have conversations, we have, and so Julie was able to put that little tag on there, and tie that directly, into Concord Community Schools, data. And so, as a district, now the buildings all have different measures, which is what I'll talk about here with CISA. So one of the things we've been trying to do with CISA is have a dashboard on our website that has not only these lagging measures that we don't want to just recreate the GPS dashboard. And we have leading measures such as DIBELS, which Mr. Myers talked about tonight. NWA is given 3 times a year. We're able to progress monitor on a more regular basis with that, how we're doing. That is part of our academic dashboard that every time the kids take it, we'll be able to upload that. We have had technical issues to put it, I guess, in the best way. We're trying to get NWA, Power School, these different places that have our data, make sure that that data is protected, and make sure that we're doing things in a good way in terms of cybersecurity as well. We've run into a few snags, and so we're well on our way. We're making progress, but my ask tonight is that we continue with our relationship with CISA so that we can get that done. We'd like to have that done in August, and so at that point, people will be able to come to our website. They'll be able to see the Indiana dashboard and where we fit into that, and then they'll be able to click on the link of Concord's dashboard. It'll not just include our academic measures. It'll include some of the survey data that we've presented. It'll have data from all of our 4 pillars. So we're making sure that we're addressing those things you want us to address. And so I would ask for your approval tonight so that we can hopefully get it wrapped up with CISA. We had an original agreement, and we kept piling on new projects. I'll just have to admit, we found the program very useful, especially in giving surveys and the way we're able to make sense of those surveys. That in combination with the technical challenges we've had, would like to be able to continue to work with them. So Josh has been great. They've been great. So.
Motion to approve as presented.
I have a motion by Mr. Yoder, a second by Mrs. Davis. Any comments or questions for Mr. Funston?
These technical issues, are they, on our end, or is there something that we're needing from the company that, we're still trying to work out? That would be my first question.
Would you say mostly with the server that's kind of in between?
Power School's not overly liking to give up their data, right? And so the way we pull it out of there and the format in which it comes out, once we figure that out, they're just not set up a lot. So we've got to do get it from them, manipulate it, and put it back into Qualtrics. So that's kind of the hang up we're having on that.
So SES is doing their part.
Yeah.
Power School being Power School.
Yeah, exactly.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed? Very good. That brings us to 9.4. Mr. Funston.
Yeah, I'm gonna take that. So we are, we're not bringing raises. If any principals are in the room tonight, this isn't a raise. We are bringing an extension. We like to keep administrators on 2-year contracts, which expired June 30th. And so this would just would be a rollover of that. In my 3rd year here, it feels really nice to have a team of folks that's consistent now at this point. We've had some turnover, had some people moving positions, and there's been a lot of coaching of new administrators, and we're really looking forward, I know Kent, Lisa, and I, to having our team back next year. So a couple notes here. Mr. Powell was hired this spring to replace Mr. Carlton, so and I think he's in the room here. So there's some notes in there on that. Ms. Kennedy was hired to fill a new position, so you'll note that. Mrs. Tahara is going to transition from our college and career readiness coordinator and oversee move up to an associate principal at Concord High School. Then our deans of students in August of last year, we shifted them into the administrative employee group. So would ask for your consideration and extensions for the administrative group as listed.
Motion
Go ahead, sir.
approved.
I'll second. I have a motion by Mr. Malooly, a second by Mrs. Towner. Any comments or questions for Mr. Function? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed? Good, that brings us, Mr. Phillips, you've been waiting so patiently back in the corner. 9.6.
Thank you, Mrs. White. So tonight, we are seeking your permission on a couple of different things. First, an RFP for a construction manager for the 23 bond projects. We should have that in the packet. And then also permission to advertise that. If you approve that tonight, we would advertise first on the 26th of this month. Would be the first advertisement, and then a week later, August 2nd would be the second, and then all the applications for the construction manager would be due 2 p.m. here, August 10th. And at that point, we would review it. So you can go through them on
Second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Towner, a second by Mr. Yoder. Any comments or questions for Mr. Phillips?
Mr. Phillips, will we be able to get this softball thing done so they aren't interrupted?
Yes,
Guaranteed.
make sure we're not interrupted. I can't guarantee it's done this fall, but I did talk to the folks today, and so they know it's on.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed? Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Mr. Powell, you'd like us to consider contract.
Thank you very much.
I like to use the
Thank you. I have been here a short time, but I've learned to wear green.
No red, only green.
That's right. Thank you guys for your time tonight. I'm really just representing a contract from, that we've had in the past. I'm still learning, how our contract has worked with Sears. And so tonight I'm seeking approval for a new contract. The old contract, we have 990 gallons, of fuel left. And so our new contract, will be coming up very soon. With that, the old contract, we had 25 gallons at, 25,000 gallons at $3.30. And after speaking with them last week, we were able to get a new contract for $3.02. So there's a significant change there. I would like to get us in while it's lower. I know that even today it shot up about 50 cents compared to last week. And so there is savings involved there. We looked at 50,000 gallons down the road. That's going to save us about $14,000. And since being the new transportation director, one of our things that we want to see is figure out ways to be more efficient and save money. And to me, this is a good contract. It gives us a chance to look at it too. I'm not saying the contracts are the way to go all the way down the future, but at least we can get a couple of years in and looking at this and seeing if this is going to be more cost efficient for the future.
Motion to approve as presented. Hurry.
I have a motion by Mr. Yoder, a second by Mrs. Davis, and an urgency, clearly. So any other questions for Mr. Powell?
Yeah, how many months were you intending to get out of one contract? It was like, I'm looking here, it took us about 2 months to burn through 25,000 gallons.
Yes. Once again, I'm just learning. One of the things is if we get a lower price at any point in time, so let's say tomorrow I got a lower price, I could bring another contract to you guys in addition to the 50, and it would start at that price. And so One of the ways they work, anytime we renew a contract, we can renew it anytime. It's just going to be after this contract is up. And so it's a safeguard for the next 50. We burned through the 25,000 pretty quick, it looks like, since March. And so I'm still doing some studies to see where we have been in the last couple of years to figure out how fast we're going to be burning through fuel. I know in that we're trying to be more efficient in our busing too. We've been looking at routes and even exploring that a little bit.
Any other comments? So 990 gallons is not gonna get us anywhere.
Thankfully, we're still in summertime.
All right. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. We like saving money. Is there any sharing from the board?
I just want to remark, I'm looking at here, last meeting, we had 2 people show up from the general public, and now I'm looking at here, and, we have a few open seats left. So, that, I like that, because one of the things I'm big on is community engagement, people actually showing up, when we talk about, the not so exciting things, and also the, fairly exciting things, and so I'm glad to see people here. I'll be sticking around a little bit. I'd like to meet some of you, if I could, but I'm just glad to see people showing up, even in the summer, talk about things that aren't terribly exciting.
I enjoyed watching the teachers and folks when the test scores and Mr. Myers was presenting and they were hitting each other and being kind of, so that was refreshing. So thank you. And then for the softball players, thank you for calling. And when you saw the presentation, selfishly, if it's bad weather and I'm traveling and I see Mr. Freeheim calling, I'm thinking he's canceling a game and asking me if I can umpire. And I don't know that I want to umpire at home. But I would, so the kids can play, but it's that Michigan rule. And then, Funston, you're playing a lot of golf, because I saw you at the golf course, so I know you're gonna talk about that, but you're hitting the ball well.
He's long. Making fun.
Anybody else? Well, now your turn to tell us how you golfed.
Yeah, so, well, actually, I just want to point out a couple things. I've talked about Dollars for Scholars a lot, and this is kind of, I'm on the board, and so this is a podium for me to do that. This past year, Dollars for Scholars gave out 120 $1,000 scholarships to Concord students. And it wasn't just for four-year colleges, it was kids going to trade school, to two-year school, just a lot of opportunities that are opened up for students. The more that they can get just a little bit of a head start and they can see that maybe this is affordable for our kids. And so it's a great thing our community does. This year, we don't know the exact totals yet. I can come back with that, but I know that it was our most successful year in terms of fundraising. Mrs. Good over here did a great job helping us get sponsorships. And those people on that board, I just want to thank all them. In addition to everybody else that came out and played, it's not cheap to play. I think it was $125 this year. And that money goes towards those scholarships. So Mike Ozier is the best MC in the world, and Mike MCs that event for us and stayed late into the night helping to clean up that night. And so I just want to thank those people, thank Lindsay and Mr. Ozier, and Julie helped out a lot too with making this a successful year. So everybody else, it's the same Thursday as it was this year. So it would be July 13th next year is when we'll, no, that's this year. 24 would be, I gotta give this to you so you can put your calendar, sorry. It would be, I believe the 18th, I'll double check that. And we'd love to have more teams. So I will say we were packed this year, so get your registration in early. We had to go out and rent and had carts brought in, so we had enough golf carts for everybody. That's it.
right, thank you, everybody, for your attendance this evening, and we are adjourned at 5:35 p.m. You're welcome.
Hey,